Right, welcome everybody. Just gonna do a sound check here. And it looks good. All right. Well, it's a pleasure to be back live this time from the home base in Western Montana. And we've got a whole list of Casios to go through today. We're going to go through what I think are the best Casios of 2024. And this is from my collection. So this is not to say that these are the best Casios that are out there. This is just in the collection that I have. And if you're looking for the Casios that I have, there's a couple of videos that I put out recently that that really show, I think, a lot of, let's see here, there's the comments, that show a lot of the Casios I have, the style that I like. And so if you're looking for something like that, check out those videos. I'm moving some my microphone around here. That's why there's some extra noise, but check that out as well. Now, we're going to go through the list. And the list is going to have all these photographs up here. So I'm going to be off to the side as far as the visual goes, which is fine by me. And let's turn this light down just a touch. And turn this light down just a touch. There we go. All right. Much better. Okay, so we're going to go through the list. I have, here's the paper. Here's the notes. Got to have the notes. Negative display is going to be the first one on the list. And then we're going to get into the top calculator Databank. And these are the ones that I've worn a lot, the ones that I preferred over 2024. And then we're going to analog, the straight up analog watch that I wore the most, that I prefer. And it's kind of an interesting one. I haven't seen it very often anywhere else on YouTube or basically on any of the other reviews, but that's going to be an interesting one. The best Ani-digi, which is a shock. This is going to be one that, yeah, it's different. Mid-sized G-Shock, large-sized G-Shock, most worn. I've got 4 of those. I'm going to go from the number 4 all the way up to number 1. Classic, vintage, retro. We've got 3 of those. We'll start with number 3, move up to number 1. And then I've included one more that wasn't in the description. Best unknown to me, G-Shock, and then the best overall Casio for 2024. And that one is, I think, that might shock a few people as well, as far as the videos that you've seen me do. And where did I end up with the best Casio of 2024? There we go, from Ontario. How you doing? Nice. Excellent. So here we go. Let's start off with the best negative display. And this is number 2 on the list. And this is number 2 because we're going to talk about the MIP. The MIP display is phenomenal. And so if you're looking for an MIP display, I think there's 2 of them that I have that are unbelievable. And this is the GBD 300. And the GBD 300, you're going to see this one throughout my list in multiple places. This is relatively new. I got it later this fall, and this is a phenomenal watch. I'm still struggling with the usability of this watch and the interface that's on here and all the functions that are on this watch. But this watch right here is phenomenal. There's a good view of it right there. And it is going to replace, I think, my wearing of the Square overall. And that's one, I think, for MIP display. And the top one overall for MIP display, and this one actually has, and I'll hold these both up together, but the GBDH 2000. So Jim Kincaid, your legendary status never seems to end. But the GBDH 2000 just seems to have a better, let's move this out of the way here. It has a better overall display. Let's get this up here. There we go. And it's a little bit brighter. It's hard to see in the camera online here, but it's a little bit brighter than the GBD 300. The GBDH 2000 has a slightly brighter MIP display. So if you're going to go with an MIP display, and these are the only 2 that I have, and it's like, well, with 1 and 2, that's the only 2 you have. They are phenomenal. MIP, if you get access to an MIP display, go get one, because there's nothing like it when it comes to a negative display. It really is toning down the look of the watch. So if you're looking for that kind of that blackout look or that tactical look, tactical look, if you're into that kind of stuff, I think that's the way to go. Now, one upside to the GBD 300 is the overall thickness. Let's see, let's get this up here. There we go. Is the overall thickness or height off the wrist. So the height off the wrist is definitely going to go to the GBD 300. It is much more profile friendly for long sleeve shirts, jackets, those kind of things, long sleeves, than the GBDH 2000 is. So if you're looking for, that's why it's probably going to replace me wearing the Square. And I wore the Square a lot this past year when I was using my lawn business, running my lawn business. And it was a really popular watch. But this GBD 300 is phenomenal. I love the look of it. I love the wearability of it. And it has that fitness strap on here. So you're going to get a great fit on this versus any other Casio. I'm going to hold up the GBD, or the GD 350, where the holes are a little bit further apart. So you're going to get a much better fit with that. I don't know if they call it a fitness strap, whatever, but it's the strap that's most often associated with their fitness watches, step counters, the health watches where you have the heart rate monitor, the O2 sensor, all that stuff. That's most closely associated with those types of watches. So yeah, number one for MIP, the GBDH 2000 is slightly brighter than the GBD 300. Now, what about the other negative display? And if you watch the channel, you're going to know this one's going to pop up. This is the best one. I've reviewed a number of negative displays, but the GD 350 is hands down the best negative display I've ever seen. So this is not an MIP, but it is really close as far as contrast goes to the MIP display. I have not seen anything like this before. I've done a couple other negative displays and they were dismal, absolutely dismal negative displays. This one I can read in daylight, low light conditions, phenomenal display. So I think that's the way to go. If you're going to go with a negative display, go with that one, the GD 350. Now, the top calculator watch in Databank, we're going to start off with the ABC 30. Now, the ABC 30, well, let's go back here. There we go. I'm not following my slides. All right, there's the negative display for the GD 350. All right. So the ABC 30, fantastic Databank calculator watch. I love the look of it. It's got some retro look to it. It's an older watch, so this is not new. And the bracelet on here is not an original. This is someone put this on when they sold it on eBay, and I bought this off of eBay. But this is really one of my favorite Databank watches, and I wear this a lot because it's kind of a styling watch. You can wear this in a lot of different situations. Not your typical calculator Databank watch, especially with the keypad on there for the calculator piece. You have this analog portion that goes with it, so it kind of softens the geek or the nerdy look to it, if that makes sense. But I really like the looks of this watch a lot, and so I think the ABC 30 is one of the watches to take a look at. It's a vintage watch. You're gonna have to go online to find a vintage watch, seller and see if you can find one of these. But it's a fantastic watch. Love it. The number one, and I use this one a lot, and I put another bracelet on here, actually a metal bracelet on this one, and that's the DBC, right? DBC 32. Make sure I get these numbers correct. The DBC 32, fantastic Databank. I have all of my important phone numbers on here. None of my account numbers are on here, but phone numbers that I can contact people. So when I'm traveling, I'm wearing this watch all the time. And I wear this watch because if something happens to my phone, let's say you're driving and you get into a car accident and your phone goes flying across, which it will do if it's not tied down, and it'll fly into something in the car. It could shatter and break. And now what? You don't have access to your phone number. So I wear this watch on my wrist. I have access to all of my important phone numbers, health insurance, car insurance, banking information, credit card information. And these are just phone numbers. They're not account numbers because I've got all the stuff that I need in my head. So unless I'm injured, I should be able to access my accounts and do whatever I need to do. So the DBC 32 is the way to go. I highly recommend this. The buttons are more tactile. You have a great display. The light is awesome. You have an auto light feature on here. If you look in the upper right-hand corner, there's an auto light feature. So when you tilt your wrist, much like some of the other G-Shocks, the light will come on. It also has a 10-year battery. So if you replace the battery once, you're going to get approximately 18 to 20 years of life off this watch. That is huge. I just can't, I can't fathom a watch like this lasting 18 to 20 years with just one battery change. So I think it's a fantastic watch. I think it's a fantastic deal, especially for travel information, things like that. If you travel out of the country, you put the embassy numbers in there, hotel numbers, those kind of things. Like I would highly recommend that you have a Databank with you while you're traveling in the country or outside the country. So there you go. Top calculator Databank watch goes to the DBC 32. Analog, the best analog Casio. Now there's a whole bunch. You've got the Duro. You've got all kinds of Casio analog watches that are out there. And I just did a live stream a week ago, was it? And I forget what it was. It was the GW 600, I think, something like that, or it was the 600 series. But this is the one that I wear a lot. Now, I'm going to show you a picture of it. This is with the bracelet that it came with, which I think is garbage. And how much garbage do I think it is? I tried taking it off, and this is what it looked like. I could not, for the life of me, get this bracelet off to swap out and put in a strap. But this is what happened. Totally destroyed the bracelet. It's the way it goes. Okay. But to me, it's a sharp looking watch. Now, if you just look at the watch head itself, look at the handset on here. It's a fantastic handset. The minute hand is red. I love the little splash of color in there. And it does have a rotating bezel that clicks. There, you hear that? Okay. So it's got the dive watch feel and dive watch look to it. Get this all the way back around to 12 because that's my OCD kicking in. And it lines up perfectly. And the second hand strikes all of the second markers on the dial. It is a great looking watch. Now, you're going to have a hard time finding this. I only found this on, I think it was Amazon, and I'm not sure you can find it on Amazon anymore, but it's the MTD 1074, the 1074. This is a great looking watch. And the dial size is on the larger side. I think it's in the low, maybe mid 40s across the case. So it's a larger watch, but the bezel on here is small. It's subdued. You can see the numbers on the bezel are not real bright white. So that kind of pushes it in the background a little bit, but the numbers on here are great. The lume is awesome for Casio, and it also has a date wheel. So this is my favorite analog watch for 2024 is the MTD 1074. All right, moving on. What do we have next? Ani-digi. Okay. This is where, yeah, I love this watch. It's great. And I love the fact that it's illuminated, and it's illuminating both the analog and the digital dial and display. It's fantastic. It is the ABC 30. I'm going to say it again. The ABC 30 is a phenomenal analog digital watch. And it illuminates the analog dial and also the digital display when you press the light button on here. And I think I've already passed, let's go back here. I think I already passed there it is. So that's what it looks like when it's illuminated. It's phenomenal. Now, when I was traveling, and I was traveling one time zone to the east, so I'm bumping up the time. I had the analog clock or the analog watch on one time zone. The digital, I just left it alone. So all I did was go and use the crown on the side of, here we go. There it is on the side of the case, that silver crown. And I adjusted the analog portion of the watch, and I was good to go. I had 2 time zones displayed in front of me. Now you can see on this picture, I have the date on there. But you can have the time on there like I have right there, 10:05 with 20 seconds. Like you can do that. And so to me, this is one of the best analog digital watches out there. It's vintage. Yep. It's one that I wear quite a bit. And the bracelet, because it's aftermarket, it fits pretty good. It has a lot of adjustments on it. So whoever fixed this one up, I think did a phenomenal job with it. And yeah, so there we go. Best Ani-digi for me in my collection is the ABC 30. Kind of curious to see what you guys think of analog digital. Now a lot of people out there with analog digital, they don't like it because it crams things together. And frankly, the Casio, I can't stand the Casio because the digital display is practically worthless. There was another guy that did a review out there that was telling me that he could see the digital display, and then later on he was talking about using his glasses. I'm like, wait a minute, you got to put your glasses on to see it. That's not a good test. Like for me, I have reading glasses, so I have to put my reading glasses on to see the display on the Casio, which is what is that one? It's the GAB 2100, I think is what it is. So to me, it's a G-Shock. It's great. But I just can't see the digital display easily enough without my glasses. And to me, that's one of the tests for a digital display is I need to be able to see the basics, like the time, very easily. So that one's out of the mix from an analog digital display. I already had the ProTrek. What is that one? The PRWY. I forget what it's the ProTrek one that I had from a couple of years ago. Fantastic analog digital display. It's a larger watch for sure. And that's why it has such a great analog display. It has such a great digital display because it is a large watch. It gives a lot of real estate to both of those. So I love it for that reason. Love to hear what you have to say on analog or Ani-digi watches. What are your favorites out there? The Duro, I know is going to come up. I know it's going to come up. It's a cheap watch. It's a dive watch. It's a great option for Casio. But I really think when it comes to analogs, it's hard to beat the MTD 1074. I mean, that's from an aesthetic perspective. This is pretty dang good. Now, the crown, it's a little slippery. The bezel is a little slippery. It's not as grippy as I'd like. That's okay. I don't use the timing bezel a lot anyway, but it's phenomenal. It's a great analog watch. So Analog and Ani-digi, what do you have to say on those? I'd love to hear what you have to say about that. Now, let's get into some G-Shocks. Mid-sized G-Shocks. Mid-sized. And this one, let's see here. Where do we have? Oh, there's only one. And this is, you're going to see this one a little bit more. This is quickly becoming my favorite. And yes, it is the GBD 300. I love it. I love this watch. The display on this one is phenomenal. You can also, this is Bluetooth, so you can change the display to a couple of different displays. The strap on here is awesome. The look of this one, I love the little bit of touch of gray on there, kind of breaks up the monotony of the black. MIP display, you can do all kinds of things with notifications. I wish I have all turned off. I don't like the notifications. I don't need to be notified of a phone call or text message. I will check my phone when I'm ready. So it has all of that stuff. And to me, this is one of the best looking kind of low profile MIP display G-Shocks that for this year, and I've only had this for a couple of months. I really like this watch a lot. I wear it quite a bit. I wore it steadily for a long time. Now, this also has a step counter. It doesn't have the heart rate monitor or the O2 sensor on here, so it's not an H model. But it does have the step counter on here. It does have activities, and you can track with GPS how far you've walked. I don't know all the functions on here. Matter of fact, this is probably the most frustrating part about this watch. The functions on here are not easy to understand. When you get into the step counting and all the fitness pieces of it, it's not the easiest to understand. So I am closely and slowly going over the manual to understand how that all works. It'll tell you the step count, no problem. And also, it uses a different fitness app, which, come on, Casio. This is something that, so you've got, let me pull this up here. So you've got the G-Shock Move app, and then you've got the Casio Watch app. Now you have to have the G-Shock Move app for the GBD 300. Okay, it shows up there. And as far as I know, and I could be wrong in this, but the GBD H2000 uses the Casio Watch app. So two different apps for two different watches. I think that's just bogus. Get yourself together and just have one app for all of the fitness. Have one app for all these watches that have Bluetooth connectivity. Put it all together. And when you choose the watch, it filters through and makes the app function differently for each watch that you choose. But to me, two apps for two different watches is not good. But as far as wearability, like I said, profile-wise, it's a G-Shock. It has the step counter on here. It is not a low-profile watch, but it is far lower than the GBD H2000. And it's also a little bit slicker. When you look at the GBD H2000 compared to the GBD 300, you can see that the bezel on the GBD H2000 has got some significant catchable surfaces on there, where the GBD 300 is much more slick. And to me, and you've heard me say this in a lot of situations, I prefer the slick look because it doesn't catch on clothes as easily. This is when it comes to wintertime apparel here in Western Montana, because that's what we're in right now, it's a pain in the butt with certain shirts, long sleeve shirts, jackets that have a little tighter cuff, putting on gloves, winter gloves. You want to get that glove over the top of your watch if you can. It catches. The GBD 2000 catches on things. So I really, really like, as far as a mid-size G-Shock goes, I like this one. Now here's another downside to this. I think Casio's got a downside to it. It's about a 2-year battery on here. 2-year battery? Come on. Now I suppose that has to do with the Bluetooth connectivity. It has to do with some of the fitness features on there. The light is phenomenal on here. I just think this watch has got so much going for it, but a 2-year battery is just, that's a big ding. I haven't done the full review on this yet. I've been wearing it a lot, and I've enjoyed it a lot. But I think this watch is going to seriously replace the Casio Square. What is this? GWM 5610U, which I have, which is that tough solar multi-band 6 watch, which is my favorite low profile, beat the snot out of it watch. You can wear it with just about anything. It's a classic. It's a legend. It's the Square, so it's not going to go anywhere. But this GBD 300 is phenomenal. Highly recommend it. Now, as far as I know, it's not here in the United States. It's overseas, so you have to go to eBay to buy it. If it's on eBay, I got lucky and found one on eBay and bought it, and I really like it. So All right, mid-sized G-Shock, GBD 300. Now, what about the large-sized G-Shock? We're going to start with the one that I'm really starting to grow to like. And Jim Kincaid, if you're out there watching this, there's a few guys that I reference here in a lot of these videos. But if you haven't been over to Jim Kincaid's channel on YouTube, go to his channel. It is awesome. He is the G-Shock guy. And I was watching his channel months ago, and he was just nuts over the Mudman. And the Mudman is a great watch. And I was like, oh, the Mudman, really? Look at it. It's like it looks kind of like a smartwatch. You know, I'm not right. I'm not there yet. But as far as the best the number two large size G-Shock for 2024, it is going to be the Mudman, the GW 9500. Now, this is the MEC model. And the MEC model has the metal bezel. It's a little bit more expensive. It has some of the color accents for emergency workers. So you have orange, yellow, and red. Why they didn't put blue in there for cops? Like, I'm a former cop. Like, why didn't you put a little blue accent in there for cops? Come on. You missed a total opportunity for emergency workers, but that's the way it goes. They have yellow, orange, and red on there, which is great. And of course, the legibility of this is phenomenal. It has the altimeter, barometer, compass, the ABC functions. It has a solar, multiband 6. Like, this watch is just going to be around for decades. There's just no two ways around it. It's going to be around for decades for me. And I like it. And because it's an MEC model with a metal bezel, and if you look at Jim's channel, he actually shows and measures the polymer bezel that goes around the display started to warp on him. Now, I don't know if like putting diesel fuel on it had anything to do with it, but regardless, this one has the metal bezel, so it's a little bit more durable that way. And I love it. And I highly, highly recommend this particular watch. I think this, like he said in his channel, this might be the toughest G-Shock they have out there. I would say it's definitely one of a couple, because the one that I have coming up at the end, I think is going to take the cake when it comes to just toughness. Now, the profile of this one, I like the profile of this a lot because it appears to be less chunky than some of these other watches. When you look at the chunkiness of, say, the GBDH 2000, okay, it just has that chunky look because it's short and squat, okay? But when you compare that to the Mudman, you just don't get that same feeling, okay? Because the Mudman has a bigger case, a slightly bigger case. It's also just a little bit shorter off the wrist, a little bit shorter, a little closer to the wrist. But because the case size is a little bit larger, you end up getting the perception that it is not as chunky, all right? And there's some other watches out there that are chunky. One of the watches that's going to make the list here is a chunk monster. It's a chunky watch, no doubt about it. So I call it the chunkiness factor. You take the case diameter divided by the height off the wrist. They're both millimeter measurements. Divide them out, and you get what I call the chunkiness factor, the CF. Okay, so if you watch some of my videos this past, I would say the latter half of this year for sure, you're going to see it's called a CF factor, the chunkiness factor, pop in. And I honestly have been missing. I've forgotten to put that in some of the watch reviews I've done, as far as the chunkiness factor goes. But it's a really easy calculation. It's just a proportion. It's the case diameter divided by the height off the wrist. So you get a chunkiness factor. For me, watches that are appealing to me visually are in like that 3.4, 3.3 and larger. So when you get to the larger numbers, it has that more low profile look to it. And even large watches can get that number. Just because it's large doesn't mean that it appears to be chunky. A lot of times, some of the smaller watches that are very tall off the wrist look like a block of watch or steel or whatever it is on the wrist. So the chunkiness factor is a proportion. All right. So large sized G-Shock, number 2 goes to the Mudman. All right. Number one is the GD 350. I love this watch, and I love the display on this watch. It's tough as nails. And here's the part that I love the most about this watch. It's the vibration alert. It is subtle. It only notifies me. Nobody else knows it's going off. I just had the alarm. Actually, the alarm went off on this watch, on the Mudman, and it's annoying. You know, if you don't turn it off, the next time you know that it's on, it's going to be beeping. Whereas with the GD 350, you can have this on your wrist, and you don't know if nobody else knows that the alarm is going off on my wrist. So I use this when I'm doing presentations. Now I've sold my lawn business. I'm no longer doing that. And I'm doing professional development for teachers with a program for math and reading. And in my presentation, if I have a 55-minute presentation, I will set the vibration alarm, the timer on this, because you have instant access to the timer right here. Whatever your timer is set at, you press this button down here, which is the D button, and it starts the timer automatically. You don't have to go to the timer function and then hit start. You can just hit this button. It starts it up right away. So when I'm talking, almost said preaching, when I'm talking with teachers and helping them out with these programs, I will hit that, and 50 minutes in, I get a vibration alert on my wrist. Nobody else knows it goes off. Now I know I've got 5 minutes left, time to wrap it up and do some Q&A. This is one of the features that puts this watch towards the top almost every time. Now, there's another one out there. It's the Big Sky. Shoot, what is the Big Sky? I'm already forgetting this one. It's the not the W800, but the Big Sky. I forget it already. I will try to put that in the comments or the description so that I don't forget the number on it. But go back to my video list, my video library, and it'll say the Big Sky, and I forget what that model number is. But that also has the vibrate alert on it as well. And that's what got me onto it. It's like, I love that watch. And so I think it's is it the 810 or 710? Something like that. But check it out. The vibration alert, highly, highly, highly recommend it. It's a G-Shock, tough as nails. It's a chunky watch. It's more chunky than the Mudman. So the Mudman gets the cake when it comes to the wearability. But when it comes to the functions, I love the instant access to the timer and the vibration alert for alarms and timers and all that. Now you have to have, it's either on or off. You can't have an audible alarm for your alarms and then a vibration alert for your timer. It's one or the other. It also has the auto light feature on here, and the auto light feature is fantastic. Now, because it's battery powered, it goes off after, I think, 6 hours. So after 6 hours, this will turn off, and the auto light feature turns off, so it doesn't keep draining the battery every time you turn your wrist. But you put it on at night, let's say it's 9, 10 o'clock at night, turn it on. You're going to have it on as long as you need it into the early morning hours. So the GD350, best large G-Shock that I have for this year. This was purchased this year. The Mudman purchased this year. So that's what they fit for 2024. Last year was the ProTrek PRW. What's the number? I'll have to look it up. I'll pause here and go back and grab it. But that was last year's model, which is great. It's an Ani-digi watch. Love it. All right, most worn watches. Next category, the most worn watches. Now, the GBDH 2000 is number 4 on the list because of the fitness stuff on here, the sleep. I wear this a lot to find out how I'm sleeping. And recently, with some of the stuff going on in my life, it's been important. Like, how am I getting some sleep? Do I need to do something different? Do I need to exercise? And it's helped me kind of dial in my sleep habits. And this is, because of that, this watch is phenomenal for the health fitness piece. You got the heart rate monitor, the O2 sensor on here. You've got all the fitness tracking for hiking, running, biking, working out, all that stuff. So you got all that. Let's check out some comments here. Megasoid, haven't worn a Casio in a very long time. Still love their reference and respect to your brand. Yes, 350s, no slouch. Happy New Year, Brian, Ireland. Happy New Year. If you're in Ireland, it's going to be coming to you guys soon. What is Ireland, like 6 hours, 7 hours ahead? So you're getting close to the new year. Had the G-Shock GX56BB for a long time as well. The GX56BB, I've never heard of that one. I have not heard of that one. I'm going to be looking that one up. So thanks for the comments. I'll be checking out the comments here. But Happy New Year to anybody who's visiting. And if you don't leave a comment, that's fine. Just Happy New Year. And I wish you all the best in the 2025 year. So that's the most worn number 4, the GBDH 2000. That was number 4. Number 3 is, where did it go? I don't have it up here with me, but it is the Square. I wore the Square a lot, and I wore it a lot for work. That was the GWM 5610U, the classic Square. So let's get this up here. There's the Mudman. There we go. That was number 4 on the list. Number 5 on the list was the Square. I forget. I've got all this stuff I've got all the watches next to me, but I've got the pictures up here on the PowerPoint. But the 5610U, you got to have a 5600 model, whether it is the 5610U, which is the tough solar, the multiband 6, or the 5600. There's a couple of versions. There's a solar version. There's a non-solar version. There's the auto light version on there as well. This one, the 5610U, has the auto light feature. It has the tough solar. It has the multiband 6. It kind of has everything that the Square has, with the exception of all the health stuff that's out there. There's a 5600 or H model that has a step counter. I think it also has a heart rate monitor on it as well. But that's another model that I'm just not into that one. I think that they've crammed too much stuff into an already kind of small display. I will definitely stick with the GBDH 2000. It's a much bigger display for that kind of stuff. So, but the 5610U, fantastic watch. I wore it a lot for work when I was doing the lawn care business. Low profile, doesn't catch on things, doing yard work, that kind of thing. It's just a great watch. Next up, this is a shocker. It's the MTD 1074. This analog watch. This is get the reflection off there. A great analog watch. Find it. I highly, highly, highly recommend that you get it. It is not an expensive watch at all. And the bracelet on there, I think, is garbage. And I put on an FKM tropical strap on here. So that really helps a lot. I actually think it looks better with a rubber strap on there anyway. It gives you a little bit more flexibility when you have to, when you're outside doing some work and your wrist gets a little bit bigger, you can adjust it on the fly. It's the first original adjust on the fly strap or bracelet is basically the strap. So the MTD 1074, I love that watch. It's a great watch. I wore it a lot. When I wear it, I end up wearing it multiple days because I just love looking at it. It's an easy watch to look at. It's larger, very legible. Second hand is red, so I can differentiate it. I mean, it's just fantastic across the board. Number one most worn is the GD350. Now, it was the model. It doesn't matter which model it was. It was the negative display or the positive display. I love it. Tough as nails. And again, why? And I wear this. So I'm wearing a suit and dress shirt, and I'm wearing this watch underneath my underneath the cuff of my shirt because of the vibration alert. That's one of the biggest reasons why I wear this watch. It is phenomenal. If Casio could do more vibration alerts on their lower profile watches, I mean, that to me would be the recipe for the best watch for me to wear. I love that vibration alert. I wear the GD350 a lot. It's also a great G-Shock. It's tough as nails. Has a great history with military and law enforcement. A lot of military guys have worn the GD350. It's an older style watch. I've heard that it's going out of production. I don't even know if that's true because I still see them out there. But yeah, I think this is a fantastic watch. Happy New Year, Julian. All right. Yes. Casio fans are everywhere. I love doing Casio stuff. And I've actually this past couple of months, 3 months or so, I've gravitated toward Casios because of just, I don't know, it's just simple to wear and a grab and go kind of a situation. So love them. All right. So the most worn was the GD350. Now let's go to the classic, vintage, and retro category. Classic, vintage, retro. Number 3 is the ABC 30. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this one. It's one of my favorite watches. I wear this one a lot. And that's relatively speaking. I've got a lot of watches, but I wear this model a lot because it's Ani-digi. It's easy to read. And I really like the ABC 30. Yes, Brian, I recently noticed. Here, let's put this up here. Both analog and digital watches. I think I'm getting old. Yeah. Yep. I agree with you. The day of the week function to me is great. Now if you look at what I have up here with the 5610U, the Friday looks like an FA. If you ask me, they figure out the R. It looks like FA. I don't understand that at all. So there we go. There's the MTD 1074. There is the most worn watch was the GD350 either watch. Oh, I've got this one backwards. Here we go. All right. So there it is. ABC 30. So classic vintage number 3 on the list is the ABC 30. Number 2 on the list is the CMD 40. I think this is just a cool looking watch. I love the look of this watch. Now, if anybody out there knows what game is in the background of this photograph, you and I are of the same vintage because this is a game that was produced in the early 80s, I think it was, maybe mid 80s, for sure the early 80s, back when pixels dominate. You can see the pixels and you put these cards over the controller. I wish I had I have it here with me, and it works. You put these cards over the controllers, and it kind of formats the cards so that you know what buttons are doing what. And that cartridge where it says Hawk, it's actually Space Hawk. That cartridge you put into the game console is called Intellivision, and it's vintage. Maybe this is so much fun to play. It brings me back to my Ute, as they said in My Cousin Vinny. You dragged me to buy at least 5 Casios recently, Tim. My wife is not happy. That's 2 of us. Yeah. Yeah. So there you go. I've got a few Casios. I forgot how many Casios I've got, but it's definitely over 20. I think it's over 20 at this point. And so many of them are so cheap. We're talking like $30 watches. So I'm not buying very expensive watches. I think I have probably 3 that are over $100. So the rest of them, I try to keep them as cheap as possible. Vintage ones as well. But Julian, yeah, you're right. Casios, I'm sorry. I love them. I think they're great. It's a great value. But the CMD40, that's the photograph we have on here, the CMD40. Now, this one, you can actually still program it to turn TV channel or to turn the TV on and off. There's a power button at the bottom of the right-hand side. There is also the TV video button, and you can learn the remote control functions on this. Okay. So you can take this watch and you put the 2, here's the watch right here. You can take the remote control and you point it at the watch, and there's this receiver right here in the front, and it learns the infrared signal of the remote control. Whatever button you're pressing on the remote control, it will learn that on the sensor up front. And you can use that button then to do whatever it is you're going to do. So if it's changing the channels, if it's typing in numbers for channels, if it's switching between satellite TV and, you know, the Blu-ray player, whatever it is. This watch is one cool looking watch. The downside, there's no light. I gotta make sure I gotta make double certain on that. Yeah, there's no light on this one. There's 2 calculator watches I have that don't have lights, and that's the downside to it. But it is so cool, and at the same time, it's vintage. It's, you know, remote control. It brings me back to my youth. I love it. And the number 1 on this is the IRW 100. Let's go back up here. The IRW 100 is a classic. I love the look of this watch. This was actually in the top 3 of watches I wore the most. The IRW 100. This watch right here is classic, and I don't see this watch hardly anywhere. And I think they've made it recently. This is not as old as some of the other vintage watches that I have as far as when they stopped production. I want to say that they stopped production for this watch like 10 years ago, maybe less. But this particular model is a little bit older than that. Now, this is the Tough Solar. It has the Wave Scepter, so it is always on time. And because it's Tough Solar, like this is a grab and go anywhere watch. Let me double check to make sure I'm speaking correctly here. Tough Solar. Where is it? Wave Scepter, Tough Solar. Yeah, just want to verify that. And the light on this is phenomenal. And the light, the illumination on this is great. Lights up the whole thing. And look at the display. The display is so incredibly legible. You have the date, you have the time, you have 3 alarms. It tells you what the charge level is of the battery in the watch. Daylight savings time. I mean, this is a great watch, and it's a great looking watch. So I really, really, really like this watch a lot. This is my favorite vintage retro classic Casio out there. So the IRW 100, the CMD 40, and the ABC 30. All right, there it is on the wrist. It just has such a good fit. It's a, you know, a rectangular look, which is just a retro to start with, but it's the right size and proportion for me. I love it. And again, you know, the display is super easy to read with glasses or without. There's the ABC 30 and the CMD 40. All right, now I've got one that I brought up. This is not on the list on the description. This is what I would say the best unknown. I didn't know this watch existed, and I'm going to eat my words a little bit on this because if you've seen my channel in the past, you know I can't stand the round dials on a Casio watch. I can't stand them. However, for some reason, this watch grabs my attention. I think it has to do with the aesthetic of the watch is dominating these stupid little round dials that showcase, I'm not sure what. Matter of fact, it is so small, I can't hardly read what's on these dials with my glasses on. But they're indicators that show, I don't know, what functions are working and which ones are. Oh, there's the high, medium, low. So one of them is a battery indicator. And then another one, I think, is the mode that it's in, which I can't read at all with my glasses. So it's pointless. All right. But here it is. It's the GWM 500. The GWM 500. Let's see if we can pull it up. There it is. All right. So there's the picture of it. And you can look. Yeah, it has like daylight savings time on there. It has snooze. So that far right dial tells you more information, but it is so small. it is pointless. And then the middle dial, I believe, is the battery level because this is tough solar and it's also, let me make sure here, yeah, multi-band 6. So this is a total grab and go, low maintenance type watch. Now it's chunky. The chunky factor on this watch is high. It is small and tall and not my favorite, but it is so slick. You can see the bezel on here. There's nothing really that's going to catch on a sleeve. And it ramps up. So you don't have the square face. If you look at the Mudman, not so much. Yeah, not quite as much. There's just something about some of these G-Shocks. Let's go with, yeah, the GD350 probably has the better example of it. You can see how the top and the bottom edges or part of the case might catch on a sleeve trying to slide over the top of the case. But this is just so slick that you're just not going to have that. It's just going to slide right up and over if the sleeve is large enough to go over that. So I love the look of it. I think the look is what dominates it for me. A little bit of chrome or, fake chrome, faux chrome on there. And then the light function on here is great, but look at where the time is located. And this, I'm a sucker for this now because I figured this out about a year ago that whenever you put the time in the center of the display, you get the biggest time display that you can. When you start putting it at the bottom, like you have on the GD350, take a look at that. See how the time is at the bottom? Okay. You're going to have a smaller display for time. It's just that simple. But when you have like the Mudman, they put it right in the center. You get these large numbers, very easy to read. And they do that right here on the GWM 500. It's a G-Shock. Okay. It's a great looking G-Shock. And I haven't finished the review on this one either. I've been wearing this one quite a bit. I go in spurts with this one and with the GBD 300. I go back and forth because I really like the looks of both of them. They're smaller too. They're not as big, like footprint wise on the wrist. So I like that as well. This one is a little bit too tall. I'm not a huge fan of how high off the wrist it is. So that's the unknown. I never saw this one before and I can't stand the dials on there, but I love everything else about this watch. It has a great, great light on there. Oh, there we go. Julian almost pulled the trigger on this. Let's pull this up here. But finally I went for the MTG 900 because of the steel band. Okay. Yeah, I have a hard time with Casios going with steel bracelets on there. Or even if you have a strap like this, it's good. Okay. I don't know. I guess I like the polymer rubber, whatever the components are. I just kind of prefer that overall with a Casio. I guess it's just kind of ingrained in my head, but I totally get what you're getting at. It's sharp looking. When they have a steel band on there, it is sharp looking. When you look at the CMD 440, this is sharp looking. I love the look of this watch. Okay. Retro for sure, but the steel on here, it's fantastic. And I love the adjustability of that. It's great. All right. Now, best overall Casio. This is the Casio that wins it as far as overall interest. I've worn it a lot. I love what it has on it. And I'm curious, before I say what it is, if anybody's online right now, put in the comments what you think it might be. I'll wait a second or two. I'm going to build up to it. Which Casio? And I've got some new ones that I picked up later this fall that I really, really like. So I'm including those in the list. So it's not just ones I've had for months, like 7, 8, 9, 10 months. This could be something I've had for the past couple of months. I'm just totally enamored by this Casio. I think it's probably one of the best Casios out there. If I have a Casio to pick, I'm probably going to pick this one. The downside to it, though, is the battery. The battery life on this one is, again, like 2 to 3 years, which I'm not a fan of. It is a G-Shock. All right, Brian, Ireland. Yeah, F91, not. Yeah, you know how much I really, really do not like. I do not like the F91 at all. It's a legend. I'm not disputing the legendary status of the F91. For that reason alone, I have it. And that's the only reason I have it, is the legendary status. But I refuse to wear it. I've only worn it for photographs for the review, and I've never worn it since because I can't stand it. Now, I actually used it traveling as my alarm clock. It is a phenomenal alarm clock because it's loud. It is incredibly loud. So for me, the F91 serves a good purpose as a alarm clock when you're traveling, and that's pretty much it. So I have it in my carry-on luggage, and I'll probably leave it there. And, the F91 is going to last in there for quite a long time. F91 for late night shopping in questionable places. Yes, F91, definitely. What is it, $10? if there's a Casio that's going to be swiped off your wrist, the F91 is the one to have on your wrist. All right. You never know. People that swipe it off their wrist may be using it for nefarious purposes, but it does have a nefarious history as being one of the preferred timers for explosive devices, IEDs. Now, I don't know if that's totally true or not, but I'm just going to throw that out there as at least an urban legend. But I think there's some truth to that. But this watch that is the best overall Casio for this year does not have tough solar, does not have multiband 6. It is a watch that, it's for those reasons. I just, I love tough solar. I love multiband 6. It's just such a low maintenance thing. But this one has a great light on it. It has one of those lights where when you hit the light button, it goes from a positive, from the display that it's in to the opposite. So I guess it would be a negative display of what it was currently displaying when you hit the light button. So for that reason, it has just a great overall light feature. It's also kind of that blackout look to it. So it has that tactical look to it as well. And here we go. Some more comments here. Building up to the 217. I love the 217. Absolutely go with the 217. I've got it behind me. I will take the 217 over the F91 any day. What do we have here? Tough solar's requirement when it comes to G-Shocks. Yes, I think tough solar is huge. Tough solar to me, it brings the watch to a different level of just ease of use. Oh, here we go. Christian, I have a 218, not a G-Shock. Yeah, 218, another great watch. Happy New Year. There we go. Chris Kahn's on there. Kahn, man, I love the photo. Nice. The F91's too small for my wrist and my eyes too. When I put it on my wrist, it does not look right. It looks like a child's watch on my wrist, and it may look great on other people's wrists. That's totally fine. I can't stand the F91. So which watch is it? The best overall Casio. Now this could be a G-Shock or not a G-Shock. This one happens to be a G-Shock. Last year it wasn't. It was the ProTrek, the PRW 6600. There it is. That's the number. PRW 6600. This year, it is a G-Shock. It is the GD350 negative display. You heard me talking about this, building up to this. This is a phenomenal watch. I wear it a lot. I love this is the best negative display that's not an MIP that's out there that I've heard of. And I've heard other people say the same thing, that this negative display is one of the best they've ever made. And so I made sure I picked one of these up. Now, I'm not sure that they have these in stock in a lot of places like Amazon. You may be hard pressed to find this particular negative display. Let's get that watch up here. You may be hard pressed to see this negative display. Let's see here. Where is that one? There we go. Out there. So just be patient, look around. You may have to go to eBay to get a used one or one that's just, leftover stock that they're trying to sell off. But I haven't seen this model as often as I see the positive display. The positive display I love too. Both of those models I really, really like. Both of them, they're exactly the same, just different displays. So the GD350, the negative display in particular, is, I think, one of the best Casios of this year that I own. It's not the best Casio that Casio makes. I'm not going to go down that path. But of the ones that I own, I really, really like this one. What are some runner-ups to this one? It's going to be the Mudman. I have to apologize to Jim Kincaid because initially when I saw this, I was like, no way. I'm not a Mudman. No way. And I was watching this. It's like, no, that can't be. No. And then I got one, and it's like, now I understand what he was saying. So the Mudman is definitely going to be up there as far as Casios go. The IRW 100, I love the look of this watch. That is a fantastic vintage-looking watch. Wave scepter, tough solar, excellent illumination. This is an aftermarket strap. This is not the normal strap, okay? It's aftermarket, but it actually goes so cool with it. I love this strap. The look of this strap is phenomenal. I love it. And it's such an easy watch to wear, easy watch to read. When it comes to the size of the numbers on the display, let me pull up the picture again. Like compared to the case, huge numbers. Look at that, the hour and minutes, and then they put the seconds down below. They didn't try to cram it all into one line like a lot of these Casios do when it comes to digital display. You'll see them try to cram it all into one line. Take a look at the GD350. All right, they cram it all into one line. Look at the GBD 300. They don't. And look what happens to the numbers. So there's something to be said about that with the IRW 100. Phenomenal. That's another honorable mention for sure. The MTD's 1074, for an analog watch, this really is a beautiful looking watch. And the CF factor, the chunkiness factor on here is awesome. All right, let's go to some of the comments here. Let's see here. Tough solar or 10-year battery. Absolutely. Yeah. So Julian, yes, because when you replace the battery once, you're going to get about 18 years out of this. 18 years out of one battery change. That is awesome. Looking for a Casio with the Bluetooth and solar these days. I have one of those. I like it for that reason. I only wear it because of the analog. The digital display is garbage. It is worthless. The chronograph, you can't read it. It actually, I think, splits. If I remember right, it splits up the chronograph top and bottom because there's two digital displays. And I can't stand it. Now, there's also, like, you can put a notification in there where it scrolls a notification or a reminder in text across the digital display. I think you get to see like 5 or 6 characters as it scrolls across. Like, it really, really tries to push the limits on that. ProTrek PRW 6900. The 6900. Is that the square looking one? I don't remember the 6900. I think that might be the square model or the more square rectangle, whatever it is, if I remember right. So US Park Talk, I would like to know, is that the one that has kind of like the IRW that's on the screen right now? Does it have kind of that shape to it? Trying to figure that out. There we go. There's the watch of the year for 2024, GD350. There it is, GD350 on Amazon for 85 pounds for those of you across the pond using the funny money that is not US dollar. I say that in jest. I love you guys. All right. I give the Canadians a hard time too. When we talk about temperature and it's in degrees Canadian, and people say, oh, it's degrees Celsius. I was like, well, if you're from Montana, you call it degrees Canadian. So anyway, great Casio, very easy to read. Did you get rid of the AE 1500? Best legibility watch ever in any watch? No. Love the watch. I have the AE 1500. That watch for some reason is too smartwatch looking for me. And it's psychologically challenging for me to wear. I'll just say it that way. It's psychologically challenging for me to wear. I do have psychological issues. That's probably one of the reasons right there. My psychological issues get in the way of the AE 1500. So yeah, it's definitely the best legibility ever of any watch. It is. There's no doubt about it. And I have to say the Mudman is right up there with it. The Mudman, you're not going to find a watch that's terribly less legible. I'm sorry, more legible than the Mudman, than maybe the AE 1500. And I got to say this too, because let me see here. Yeah, the GBDH 2000 and the GBD 300. Let's hold these guys up there. I think you'll see, let's get this turned. The GBDH 2000, the numbers on there are slightly larger than the GBD 300. Slightly larger. I got to tell you, legibility-wise, MIP displays are hard to beat. Very hard to beat. And even the AE 1500, I think their toughest competitor is going to be the MIP display, because the contrast is so incredibly high. The light is awesome, because when you hit that light button at night, it just inverts let me double check and make sure that it inverts. It just lights up the numbers a little bit better. So it doesn't invert. Now the GD350 on the positive display, if I remember right, it inverts the display. I have to go back and remember. This is based off of memory, but I think the positive display on the GD350 inverts the display. There we go. Hide that one when you hit the light button. So legibility wise, there's a lot of good choices out there, and the AE 1500 is one of the cheapest, best, highly legible watches you can possibly get. All right, what else do we have here? Let's see here. Yes, it's their camping version, inspired after Wood Axe. Reading time is so much easier compared to my Casios. And we'll go down here. Huge fan of the Citizen Echo Drive Pro Master Super Tough. Yeah. Oh, the Ray mirrors. All right. Have to look that one up. I love Echo Drives. Echo Drives it's one of the best solar drives out there for those analog watches. I love the Echo Drive. And I think they use the yeah, the Echo Drive is, do they have digital? I've only known Citizen Echo Drives with analog watches. So if I'm wrong out there, put that in the comments down below. Yeah, and Julian, I got to give you one of those MIPs. They're not 20 to 30 bucks. They are not, but it will rock your world. I'll tell you what, that is the display. Now, if you want to get something that's about $100, get the GD350. The negative display is going to be very, very close to an MIP as far as legibility and readability goes. You're just not going to find a whole lot better than that at that price point. So there you go. There's my list of all the watches that made it for the top 2024 Casios. Love to hear what you have to say on all of these Casios. It's a lot of watches, and there's I think some great options out there. Vintage wise, there's some great options. Just take your time, look through it, make sure that there is video of the watch running. So when you're buying a vintage watch, whether it's analog or digital, make sure you get video of the watch running. That's one of the standards I have. And then I also look at the number of sales that the person has made on eBay. So if I'm looking for vintage watches, those are my top two things. And then also free returns. If there's no free returns, yellow flag, if not a red flag, because it's a one-way purchase and it's not going back to them. So sometimes eBay will have a money-back guarantee that covers that, but I always look for free returns. So those are the three things: free returns, video of the watch, and then the reputability or the number of sales of the person who's selling the watch on eBay. But vintage watches, check out Casio vintage watches. There's a lot of cool stuff out there. And you can come across watches like the CMD 40, which is, I'm going to hold this up like this because the metal band on here is so cool. If that doesn't scream 1980s and 90s, late 80s, early 90s. And this is fully adjustable. This adjustment right here slides up and down on the bracelet. Okay, turn that so you can kind of see it. You flip the flap on there, and that slides up and down on the metal bracelet. Now, because these links are so wide, the adjustments are a little bit greater than some of the other ones. The DBC 60, what is it? The DBC 64, 62, I don't remember what it was. It's in the 60s. That has a metal strap on there, but the adjustments are much more fine. It uses the same technology as that, but it's much more fine-tuned, shall we say, when it comes to making adjustments. So, all right, thank you everybody for joining today. We're going to sign off here in a couple of minutes. Put in the comments down below if you have any other ideas before we sign off. I also want to say thank you for another year of support, and it's been an interesting year for me, especially the latter 4 months going through some of the stuff I'm going through. It's honestly been kind of tough to do these videos over the past 3-4 months. But I appreciate the encouragement. A number of people have reached out to me and say, "Hey, you doing all right?" And I've privately conversed with some of the people, and yeah, prayers are needed. But I think I don't know. My trust is in God. It's always been in God, but now in the past 3 months, it has been on fire for God. So if you're a Christian out there, you know what I'm talking about. If you're not, I highly encourage you to read the Bible and just explore for your own sake, on your own terms. Because that's how God works with each and every one of us. I'm not going to preach on that. I'm just going to say that God is good, and he's been good to me for a year, and I look forward to what 2025 has to offer. And if you have any ideas as far as reviews, put them out there. I'd love to hear it. Casios, otherwise, analog watches. I'm not going to be buying as many watches as I had in the past. Matter of fact, I'm going to be doing some more watch reviews where I'm comparing some things, because I've gone through and purchased so many watches that I think it's time for me to start doing some combinations of like comparisons and get into some of the nitty gritty of features. So you're going to see more of that upcoming in the 2025 season. And you'll also see some of the flashlight and knife reviews come out. I've got a load of flashlights that I just picked up another I'm a flashlight nut. So I picked up the Sofirn IF23 Pro. And if you've watched the channel, you know that I love the IF23. I think it's a far superior one to the IF24. I think the IF24 is overrated. Everybody who says, oh, it's the ease of use. And when I ask them a couple of questions about the ring and that this little deal, I can't stand this thing. All right. But this flashlight is going to get dinged for that purpose. But I do a bunch of flashlight reviews. They're coming up too. And a few knife reviews. I don't do as many knife reviews, but I'm going to be doing some more of that as we go forward in 2025. So appreciate your support, everybody. Love the comments. Thank you, Chris Kahn. Johan, there you are. He's going to watch it tomorrow. He's in a completely different country. And Julian, thank you very much. Megasoid, Chris Kahn, Brian, Ireland, Upspark, Us Park Talk, US Park Talk, Us Park. I don't know how to go for that. Christian, everybody. I'm going to go through the list here and make sure I mention everybody that signed in and left some comments. I think I got everybody. Thank you so much for watching. For those of you who didn't, yeah, all the best to you as well. You guys have a great 2025, and we'll catch you around the bend. See you later.